Ethan sat at his desk, staring at the blinking cursor on his screen. The message he wanted to write had been there in his mind all day, yet his fingers refused to move. Across the stars, literally across the stars, someone he cared for was waiting, or maybe not waiting. Maybe she had already forgotten. Her name was Lyra. She was not human, not from Earth at all, but in the years they had trained side by side at the Joint Academy, she had become closer than family. She had been a friend, a rival, a voice in the silence when he felt small. She had been there. And then, one day, she was gone. The Taval fleet recalled her to her homeworld, and just like that, the space between them grew into something Ethan couldn't bridge. Messages slowed. Her replies grew shorter. Finally, weeks passed without a single word. He pressed his palms against his eyes, frustrated. Why did it hurt so much? They weren't the same species. They weren't even meant to be friends. The Council often said humans and Taval should remain professional allies, nothing more. But rules never stopped feelings, did they? Every night, Ethan walked to the edge of the training compound and looked up. He imagined which one of those bright stars belonged to her. He remembered how she once laughed at human music, how she tried to mimic a smile and failed, how she once said, "Your kind is strange. You carry light inside, even in the dark." Now the dark felt heavy. He typed a line on the screen, "I miss you." Then he deleted it. Too simple, too weak. He tried again. "How are you?" Delete. That sounded like a stranger. He sighed, slamming the laptop shut. Maybe she didn't want to hear from him. Maybe silence was her way of saying goodbye. Still, deep down, something in him refused to give up. That stubborn spark, that human stubbornness, kept whispering, "Reach out. Try again. Don't let go." The world around him was moving fast. The Academy was preparing for war drills. Earth's leaders argued about alliances, and whispers of Taval aggression grew stronger every day. Yet in all the noise, Ethan only thought of one voice, one silver-eyed alien who had once called him companion when no one else did. He remembered the last thing she had said before leaving. "Human, do not forget me. Our paths may split, but stars turn. They always turn." It was both a promise and a wound. Ethan stood and walked outside, the night air cool against his skin. Above, the stars glittered, distant but alive. He raised a hand as if reaching for them, as if one touch could close the endless distance. Humans had always been told they were fragile, short-lived, weak compared to the great powers of the galaxy. But Ethan didn't believe that. Fragile things fought hardest to be remembered. Weak things loved strongest. And short-lived lives burned brighter. Maybe that was what humanity had to offer, the refusal to let silence win. Ethan turned back to his desk. His hands trembled as he opened the screen again. This time he didn't think, didn't edit, didn't delete. He just wrote, "Lyra, the stars feel empty without you. I don't know if you read these anymore, but I hope you do. You told me not to forget you, and I haven't. I never will. If you can, write back. If not, I'll still look up every night and know you're out there. That's enough for me, but I hope it isn't the end." Ethan, he read it once, his heart thudding. Then with a deep breath, he pressed send. The message shot upward into the void, fragile, uncertain, carried by signals through endless black. He didn't know if it would reach her. He didn't know if she would care, but for the first time in weeks he felt lighter. Because humanity's greatest strength was not power or weapons or fleets. It was hope, and tonight Ethan chose hope. The message had been sent, but silence was all that answered. Ethan checked his screen every morning, every night and sometimes in between, as if staring harder would force a reply to appear. Nothing came. Just the quiet hum of the Academy's comm system, just the hollow emptiness of space. He told himself she was busy. He told himself her duties left no time for words. He told himself 100 excuses, but deep inside, doubt grew like a shadow. Maybe she read his message and chose to ignore it. Maybe to her their friendship had been nothing more than a small distraction in a long life. It hurt. When Ethan walked through the halls of the Academy, laughter and voices echoed around him. Cadets teased one another, friends shared meals, life went on. But for him, something was missing. There was always that ghost at his side, memories of a silver-eyed alien who once walked these halls with him. He remembered how Lyra used to tilt her head when she didn't understand human jokes, how she watched sunsets with quiet wonder, how she once told him she envied humanity's way of caring so fiercely, so recklessly. Now he wondered if those words were just politeness. At night, the silence pressed hardest. He would lie awake, replaying moments they had shared, small pieces of warmth in an often cold world. And every time he reached for his communicator, fear stopped him. What if I reach out again and she doesn't answer? What if I become nothing but noise to her? That thought crushed him more than silence itself. Still, something inside refused to let him surrender. That stubborn streak that had carried humans through every hardship whispered to him, "Don't give up. Don't let distance steal what matters." One evening, Ethan walked to the far edge of the academy grounds where the air was quiet and the stars felt close. He sat on the grass, knees pulled to his chest, and stared at the sky. Somewhere light years away, Lyra lived her life. Maybe she was laughing. Maybe she was training. Maybe she had already forgotten the human who still thought of her. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to breathe steady. Then he whispered aloud as if the stars could hear, "I don't know if you still think of me, but I think of you. And I'll keep thinking of you. Because that's what we do. We hold on." The words weren't for her. They were for himself. For the aching part of him that wanted to give up. Back in his room, he opened the communicator again. His fingers hovered over the keys. He didn't write a message this time, just saved a blank draft. The act itself felt like a promise. I'll try again. Tomorrow, the day after, or the next. I'll keep trying. Because humans were fragile, yes. They broke easily, they hurt deeply. But they also carried something no distance could erase. Hope. Hope that a message might still find its way across the void. Hope that one day silence would break. Hope that bonds once real could not vanish so easily. Ethan leaned back in his chair, eyes heavy but heart steadier than before. If Lyra never answered, he would still remember her. He would still speak her name to the stars. And if she did answer, if even one small message came, he would be ready. That was the human way. Not to surrender when the universe turned cold, but to keep reaching out, again and again, even with trembling hands. He smiled faintly to himself, whispering into the quiet, "I'll wait, Lyra, as long as it takes." And with those words, he let the silence settle, not as an enemy, but as a space he would keep filling with hope, with memory, with the stubborn belief that somewhere, somehow, a friend might still be listening. Days turned into weeks, and still there was nothing. Ethan checked the communicator each morning, each night, and even during training breaks. Always the same silence. No reply, no signal. Only the soft blinking of an empty inbox that mocked him with its stillness. At first he told himself it was fine. She was busy. Commanders had duties. Whole fleets needed her. A single human cadet couldn't expect to matter in the face of empire. But the excuses wore thin, and with each day that passed, the distance between them grew heavier. It wasn't only distance measured in stars. It was distance inside his heart. He found himself drifting through the academy like a shadow. He still attended drills, still sparred, still studied. But there was no joy in it. The laughter of others felt distant, as though he were watching life through glass. One evening, sitting alone in the mess hall, he overheard two cadets whispering about the Taval fleet. Rumors of conflict, of broken treaties, of Lyra's people preparing for war. His stomach tightened. Was that why she didn't answer? Had she been forbidden, or had she chosen silence to show where her loyalty lay? The thought stung deeper than any wound. That night he went walking under the stars again. The air was cold, but it helped him think. He looked up, searching for the point of light that might be her world. He couldn't tell which one it was, just a sea of endless fire above him. "But still," he whispered, "do you remember me, Lyra? Do you still think of the human who walked beside you? Or am I just another memory you've let go?" The sky, of course, gave no answer. Ethan closed his eyes. He thought about all the things he wanted to say if he ever saw her again. How much he missed the sound of her voice. The way she studied human habits with both confusion and wonder. How she made him feel less alone, even when the galaxy seemed vast and uncaring. But the truth was simple. He just missed her, and he didn't know how to bridge the silence. For a moment, despair almost won. He almost decided to stop writing, to stop checking, to let the distance swallow what had once been. Maybe that would hurt less. Maybe forgetting was easier. But then he remembered her words spoken the day she left. "Human, do not forget me. Stars turn. They always turn. If stars could turn, then silence could break. If the universe could shift, then maybe paths could cross again." That thought lit something inside him. Humans weren't known for their strength or their long lives. But they were known for something else, their refusal to let go. Again and again through history, humans had reached for impossible things. They had sailed seas without maps, walked on worlds beyond their own, and loved even when love seemed hopeless. Ethan clenched his fists, feeling that spark steady him. He couldn't control Lyra's silence, but he could control what he chose to do, and he chose to hope. He went back to his room and opened the communicator. His hands trembled, but he began to type again. Not a desperate plea, not a demand, just words that carried the truth of who he was. Lyra, I don't know if you can reply. Maybe you're too busy. Maybe you're not allowed. But I want you to know I haven't forgotten. I won't. If the stars turn like you said, then maybe one day we'll meet again. Until then, I'll keep looking up and I'll keep sending these words. Because that's what we do. We keep reaching. Ethan. He pressed send. The silence might last another day, another week, another year. But Ethan wasn't going to stop. Because being human meant holding hope, even when the universe was quiet. And somewhere deep in his chest, he believed she would hear him. The days kept moving forward. But Ethan's heart stayed behind. Every morning he woke before the alarm. His eyes went first to the communicator on the desk, hoping for a message. Every morning the same empty screen greeted him. No signal. No reply. It was becoming a habit that hurt, a ritual of disappointment. Yet he couldn't stop. Some part of him refused to give up. Even when the silence pressed down like a weight. During training he moved like a ghost. His body followed orders, run, spar, drill, but his mind wandered elsewhere. Sometimes he saw her face in his memory, silver eyes bright, lips pulling into that strange, almost smile she never fully mastered. Sometimes he remembered her voice saying his name, careful and curious. Now all he had were echoes. One afternoon, as he sat alone in the academy library, another cadet approached. Hey Ethan, you okay? You've been quiet lately. He forced a small smile. I'm fine. It was easier than explaining the truth. Easier than telling someone he was waiting for a message from across the stars. From someone who might never write again. The cadet left and Ethan stayed, staring at the words on a training manual without reading them. His chest ached. Was he being foolish? Why keep sending messages into silence? That night he almost didn't write. He sat in front of the communicator, hands resting on the keys, but nothing came. For the first time he thought of stopping, letting go. But then, his gaze fell on the small trinket sitting beside the screen. A smooth stone, polished by Lyra's people, which she had given him on her last day at the academy. So you remember the weight of a star, she had said. He picked it up, rolling it in his hand. It was cool, steady, real, and in that moment he remembered something important. Being human wasn't about never feeling pain. It wasn't about being strong all the time. It was about carrying pain and still reaching forward anyway. He placed the stone back down and began to type. Lyra, I don't know if you'll ever read this. Maybe my words are drifting through space with no one to catch them, but I'll keep writing. Because I believe what you told me, that stars turn. If they do, then maybe one day so will we. I'll be here when that happens. Until then, I'll keep sending these messages. Because hope is all I have, and it's enough. He pressed send. The message went into the void, same as always. But instead of despair, he felt a strange calm. Days passed again. The silence didn't break. But this time, Ethan found himself walking straighter, carrying himself with more purpose. His friends noticed. One cadet asked, "What changed?" Ethan simply said, "I remembered who we are." Humans, he thought, were not built to give up. They were built to keep trying, no matter how long the wait. Even if the universe stayed quiet forever, he would not let hope die. One night, under the open sky, he looked up again. The stars glittered, far and cold, but not uncaring. He whispered softly, "I'll wait for you, Lyra, even if it takes a lifetime. That's what it means to be human. We keep reaching." He didn't know if she would ever hear him. He didn't know if silence was all that remained. But he had chosen, and his choice was hope. The days were beginning to blend together. Morning drills, meals, lessons, nights under the stars. Ethan moved through them all, but inside he felt like a ship drifting without a course. The communicator still stayed empty. Every time he checked, he told himself not to expect anything. Yet every time his heart still leapt before sinking again. Sometimes he caught himself thinking, maybe she forgot me completely. That thought stung like a blade. He tried to chase it away, but it always crept back. In the mess hall, he sat with others but said little. He listened to their laughter, their plans, their small complaints. But his own mind was elsewhere. He wondered what Lyra was eating now, light years away. He wondered if she had someone else to sit beside her, someone else she trusted. The thought filled him with a quiet ache. One night, during weapons training, an instructor barked at him. "Focus, cadet. Your head is in the clouds." He forced himself to tighten his grip on the staff to block and strike with proper form, but his chest burned with shame. He didn't want to admit the truth. His head wasn't in the clouds. It was in the stars, searching for someone who might never look back. That evening, he skipped dinner and walked outside the academy grounds. The night was cold, the air sharp. He sat on the grass and tilted his head back. The stars stretched above him, endless and brilliant. He whispered into the dark. "Where are you, Lyra? Do you still remember me? Do you even want to?" The silence, as always, gave nothing in return. His throat tightened, and for the first time in weeks he felt tears sting his eyes. He had held them back, thinking it weak to cry for someone far away, someone who might not care anymore. But now he let them fall. Yet even as he cried, another part of him refused to break. That stubborn human part, the same part that had carried his ancestors across oceans, the same part that built fires in the cold and homes in the wilderness, kept whispering, "Don't stop. Don't give up." He wiped his face and sat straighter. "If you can't hear me, that's fine. I'll keep talking anyway," he murmured. "If you can't answer, that's fine too. I'll keep waiting. Because hope is what I have, and it's what makes me human." The words felt small against the vast night sky, but they also felt true. Back in his room, he touched the polished stone Lyra had given him. He held it in his palm, feeling its cool weight. "You told me to remember you," he whispered. "I'm keeping that promise. Even if you've forgotten, I won't." He opened the communicator again. His hands shook, but he began typing. "Lyra, I don't know if silence means goodbye. Maybe it does. But if it doesn't, if it's just distance or duty or fear, then I want you to know I'm still here. I'm still waiting. Because I believe one day the stars will turn and we'll meet again. That's what you told me. And I believe it. Until then, I'll keep sending these words, even into silence." He pressed send. The message left like all the others, a fragile piece of himself thrown into the void. And like all the others, no reply came. But this time, the silence didn't crush him. He had accepted it, and he had chosen hope anyway. Because being human wasn't about never hurting. It was about hurting and still reaching out. It was about believing that even across impossible distance, bonds could survive. Ethan lay down on his bunk, the stone still clutched in his hand. His heart still ached, but it also beat with quiet strength. One day, he thought. One day the silence will break, and until then he would keep waiting. Ethan was tired of silence. Every message he sent felt like throwing words into a bottomless well. He imagined them drifting forever. Signals lost in space, never reaching the one person they were meant for. And yet he kept sending them. Some nights he wondered if that made him foolish. Some of the other cadets laughed when they caught him writing late, whispering to the stars. "Still chasing ghosts, Hale?" one said. Ethan only smiled faintly and shrugged. Better a ghost than nothing at all. But inside, doubt clawed at him. What if the silence really meant goodbye? What if she had chosen to let him go? The thought cut deep, but the human heart, fragile as it was, had its own kind of armor. Hope. And Ethan clung to that hope like a drowning man to driftwood. During training exercises, he tried to focus. He pushed his body until his muscles burned, until the sweat stung his eyes. The instructors shouted, the cadets sparred, and life pressed forward. But in every quiet moment, his thoughts returned to her. He remembered their late-night talks at the academy, her endless curiosity about human habits. He remembered her trying to hum along to a song, her voice off-key but full of effort. He remembered how she once said, "Humans are strange. You carry light even when the night is endless." Now the night felt endless indeed. But if she had seen light in him once, he could not let it go dark now. One evening, unable to sleep, Ethan walked again to the edge of the academy grounds. The stars glittered, scattered like diamonds on black silk. He sat down, hugging his knees, and spoke softly. "Lyra, I don't know if you'll ever hear me, but I'll keep speaking anyway. Because that's what it means to be human. We talk to the silence until it answers. We hope even when hope feels foolish." His voice trembled, but he kept going. "If you're out there, I want you to know you're not forgotten. You told me not to forget you, and I won't. Even if the silence lasts forever, I'll keep remembering. For a moment, he closed his eyes. A tear slipped down his cheek, but he didn't wipe it away. It was proof he still cared. Proof he was still reaching. Back in his quarters, he held the small polished stone she had given him. Its cool weight grounded him, reminded him of her voice, her presence. He placed it on the communicator and began to type again. Lyra, tonight the stars looked brighter than usual. It reminded me of the night you told me not to forget. I won't. Even if I never hear from you again, I'll keep sending these words. Because humans don't give up on the people they care about. We wait, we believe. And even if the universe is silent, we keep talking until it answers. He sent the message. This time, instead of staring at the empty screen, he leaned back and closed his eyes. The silence was still there, heavy and endless. But he no longer feared it. He had accepted that silence didn't mean the bond was gone. It only meant the waiting was longer. And if waiting was what it took, then he would wait. Because being human meant enduring loneliness without letting it break you. It meant holding on to threads of connection even when they stretched thin. It meant hoping, always hoping, that distance could be crossed. As he drifted to sleep, Ethan whispered one last thought into the dark. One day, Lyra. One day, the stars will turn. And I'll be here when they do. And though no answer came, his heart felt lighter. Because he knew he had chosen the harder path, the human path, hope in the face of silence. The communicator beeped. At first, Ethan didn't believe it. He had been half asleep, head resting on his desk after another long night of waiting. The soft sound pulled him awake, and his eyes blinked open in confusion. He thought it was a dream. For weeks, for months, there had been nothing but silence, but this time the screen glowed. A new message. His hands trembled as he opened it. The words appeared slowly, translated into human language by the system. Ethan, I am sorry for my silence. I read your messages, all of them. I could not answer before. It was forbidden. My people watch me. They question my loyalty. And to write to you would have put you in danger. But know this, I never forgot. I never let go. You were always here, even in my silence. His breath caught. He read it once, then again, then a third time, hardly able to believe it. She had heard him. She had always been listening. Tears stung his eyes as he leaned closer to the screen. She hadn't abandoned him. She hadn't forgotten. The silence had been duty, not rejection. And through all that distance, she had still chosen to answer. The message continued. Your people call you fragile. My people call you reckless, but I call you something else. You are stubborn. You keep reaching even when no hand reaches back. I thought silence would break you, but it did not. That is why I am writing now, because I see the truth of what it means to be human. You do not stop. You do not let go. Ethan's chest swelled with both joy and relief. He laughed, a sound half broken and half bright. After all the empty nights, after all the waiting, here was her voice again. He typed quickly, his fingers flying across the keys. Lyra, I don't care that it took this long. I don't care about the silence. All that matters is this, you remembered. You still care. That's enough for me. More than enough, he hesitated, then added, You once told me stars turn. You were right. The stars turned, and now you're here again. He sent the message and sat back, breathing hard, heart racing. Minutes later, her reply came. Yes. The stars turned, and I held on to your words in the dark. They kept me strong. Every message you sent reminded me of who you are and why I called you companion. Even when I could not answer, I read them again and again. I was not alone because of you. Ethan pressed his hand to the screen as if he could touch her through the glow. For the first time in months, the silence was gone. The bond between them had survived. Stronger, even. He whispered to himself, This is what it means to be human. Humans did not stop when things became hard. They did not stop when the world was silent. They waited, they reached, they believed. Even when hope felt foolish, they held on to it. And sometimes, against all odds, the universe answered. That night, Ethan didn't walk to the edge of the academy to whisper to the stars. He didn't need to. The stars had whispered back. Before sleep, he wrote one final message for the day. Lyra, thank you for answering. Thank you for remembering. No matter what happens, no matter how far apart we are, I'll keep reaching for you. Because that's who I am. That's who humans are. We don't give up on the people we care about. When he lay down, the polished stone still in his hand, his heart felt steady. The distance was still there. The war between their peoples still loomed. The future was uncertain, but hope was stronger than silence. And tonight Ethan had proof. Hope could cross the stars.